40-ish percentage of fulfillment teams report that there's alignment between the KPIs that they have to the actual business outcome that they're expecting, which I think is a huge gap. And I think the challenge is not that we don't have data. There's lots of data. Sometimes the problem is that more data actually makes things worse because more doesn't always mean better. How have you been able to focus your teams on the right signals, the right, cross-functional signals that can correlate with that business outcomes in this connected commerce era? So, not just looking at the operations, but also looking at the output, the revenue, the expansions. One of the anchor KPIs that we always hear about is on time and full, which again is still a good KPI, but the kind of complexity that we have to tackle when it comes to fulfillment, I think needs to go beyond that. So would love to hear your thoughts on, what are some of the ones that you really love to keep top of mind and have your teams anchor on as well?
Yeah. When you are executing a connected commerce strategy for brands and retailers, that does by nature mean that you have likely more complexity because you are the operations partner, and in some cases, digital and operations partner that is truly fulfilling across multiple different channels at the same time with the same inventory. So if they really are executing the strategy and we're their partner, there's a few things that we continue to focus on because, to your point, there's a million things you can track and it is data overload at this point. If I were to just maybe focus in on three key areas that we're working with our partners, our brand and retail partners on, and then certainly internally, we do still remain very focused on that customer promise metric, and that is, shipping on time and getting the order delivered on time at the highest level of accuracy. At the end of the day, if you're not getting that right, then it's not going to work, period. But there are several other metrics, and I'll just name two other ones that we're very focused on. The inventory health metric is one. When you have a client in your operations that is trying to make that inventory available across many different channels, you really do need to have some strategies in place with inventory buffering and a few other things that we watch or we deploy in those situations just to make sure that that stock to sales ratio is healthy and that we're not running out of inventory in a certain building that you have high demand for on a marketplace. That inventory availability, we call it inventory health metric, but there's several kind of dimensions to making sure that each of our clients has a very healthy metric when it comes to inventory. That is also one of the most challenging ones for brands that are expanding into multiple channels and trying to dial that inventory cost in at the right level, but also make sure that they're not getting penalized by marketplaces because they don't have inventory available, or ultimately just disappointing customers. And then the final one, so beyond the promise metric for customers and inventory health, we really are focused in on this profitability by channel, not just for ourselves internally, but also to expose that and help our clients through that process of getting visibility to understand really where their profitability is by channel. That really can be a challenge, right? Because you need to understand some of the things that are outside of our control on the fulfillment logistics side, like what their marketing spend is and what some of the digital agency spends are. But then once they do have an order drop in a fulfillment warehouse, to really understand, are we getting the productivity on that channel that we expected? And then that final mile cost, like the final mile is so volatile in the sense of being able to get the inventory closer to the customer. That's one way to manage that cost. And then optimizing for speed and cost on every delivery that does hit the actual metric, which the metrics do vary by marketplace. So it's a dynamic thing to track, but it's one that we think if we can help our brand partners figure that out, then they're going to be really successful long term.